Good morning and welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. I am the Reverend Dana Worsnop, and it is my great pleasure and honor to serve as this congregation's minister. I welcome all into this virtual space made sacred by our presence together, as always. The theme for this month is story. And on this Mother's Day, we are going to expand the stories that we tell about parenting, acknowledging that all can feel and express a nurturing love that keeps us all alive, that the survival of our very species is dependent upon. Just a quick announcement. I ask you to remember that the next week after church will be our annual congregational conversation about our budget for next year, which is hosted by the Finance Committee and the board. And so show up, find out what things look like for next year. We begin our service each week with an acknowledgement that the land each of us are on is the ancestral home of Indigenous peoples. In most of Ventura County, this is the Chumash people. So let us now breathe. Open our hearts to one another as we call up the memories of those who nurtured us into being, and let us together enter this sacred space.
Good morning. I'm Worship Associate Andy Edgar-Beltran. We hope that everyone here has a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices all together. We begin our service this morning with these words by Reverend Elizabeth Mount. Co-regulation. From our very first breath, we reach out. Co-regulation, not self-regulation, is in our nature. We find our cues from the sun and the moon, from each parent and caregiver. We find our place in this great turning planet by turning to one another. Generation to generation, we awaken to the dawn and fall asleep at the evening's end. Our life's journey is part of something greater, something simple, something divine. A flame cannot be lit without a spark. A life cannot begin without the air. And we cannot begin to find ourselves without love. May we reach out to one another. May we offer love and nurturing care. May we join together in celebration of the interdependence of our lives. Come. Let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn Bjerke, the music director, and I'd like to invite you to join me in singing our opening hymn, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores where spirits fly, over the ocean, over the land, our faith a quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children ask the reasons why, in our lives the
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fidelity Ballmer, and I'm the Religious Education Coordinator for our congregation. Today's story for our Time for the Child in Each of Us shares a little bit more about the love between the caregivers and care receivers of our world. So I hope you enjoy Pup and Bear, written by Kate Banks, illustrated by Naoko Stoop. Whoosh! When the great gray owl swooped down, screeching, woo, woo, the Arctic wolves knew that the big freeze was on its way. They took shelter in a snowdrift, and they listened to the fierce wind holler and roar. They watched the snow blow in spirals, wrapping the world in a fluffy white coat. But then the wind's bitter cold breath turned warm and the sun appeared. The big melt came, and one lone pup found itself on a sheet of ice spinning out to sea. The pup slid into the water. He swam and he swam. When he finally reached land, he burrowed into a snowbank. He was tired and he really wanted his father. The pup closed his eyes and fell asleep, listening to the throb of silence against the still landscape. He woke to the feel of a cold nose against his fur. The smell was familiar. It was a polar bear. "You are not my mother," said the pup, flattening his ears against his head. "I am not your mother," said the polar bear, "but I can cuddle you and keep you safe." The pup was shy and frightened. "Aren't you going to eat me?" he said. "Polar bears eat wolves." "Not this one," said the polar bear, shaking her head. "Climb on my back and I will take you to my den." The pup stretched a paw forward cautiously. Then he climbed onto the polar bear's back, and they crossed the tundra under the watchful eyes of a trio of baby puffins learning to fly. Back at the polar bear's den, the mother polar bear licked and cleaned the pup. "I am not your auntie," she said, "but I can feed you and keep you warm." The next day, they set off across the wintry tundra. "Where are we going?" asked the pup as they neared the water. "I am not your uncle," said the polar bear, "but I can show you where to catch a fish." The sun shone on the crisp, crackling snow, and the polar bear rolled in the snowbank. "Come on," she said to the pup. "I am not your sibling, but I can play with you." But when the pup tugged too hard at the polar bear's fur, the bear growled. "I am not your mother," she said, "but I can scold you." Then she nuzzled the pup and tickled his tummy. The earth turned round and round, and the big freeze came, followed by the big melt, until at last the polar bear nudged the wolf, who wasn't a pup any longer. "I am not your grandpa," she said, "but I know it's time for you to go." She nuzzled the wolf one last time, and the wolf nuzzled her back. Then he walked out into the wide world. The wolf howled to the midnight sun, which glowed on the horizon, where day ended and night began, and he was answered by the cry of another wolf. And soon he was leading his own pack against the frozen tundra. Then one day, the wolf came upon a polar bear cub huddled in a snowdrift. "Where is your mother?" asked the wolf, but the cub didn't know. "Aren't you going to eat me?" asked the cub. "Wolves eat polar bears." "Not this one," said the wolf, shaking its head. "Climb on my back and I will take you to my den." And the wolf led the pack back across the tundra, along the path that went round and round in the wondrous wheel of life. So one of my all-time favorite songs is called Love is Still the Answer by Jason Mraz. And I believe this to be true. Love is always looking for those opportunities to show itself, whether it's the love shared between parent and child, aunt and niece or nephew, whether it's the love between mentor and mentee, congregant and another congregant, or polar bear and wolf pup in our case. Sharing love, guidance, and wisdom with the next generation can be as spacious and wide and expansive as we choose.
Thank you for that very sweet tale, Fidelity. Each Sunday, this congregation gives away our collection to an organization in the larger community or to funds that help people in our own church. We now invite you to donate online, and you will see the link on the next slide, and it'll also be posted in the chat as a direct link. Our offering today goes to the Mixteco Indígena Organizing Project, or MICOP, to support the Rising Tequio Scholarship Fund for local Indigenous youth. The term tequio describes an Indigenous person's desire and obligation to assist their community. And these scholarships support highly motivated students who share this commitment to serve their community. Most are pursuing careers in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, also known as STEM. Indigenous youth can face tremendous barriers to academic success. Their parents are often fluent only in their native language of Mixteco or Zapoteco and have limited literacy. Typically, they are employed in the berry row crop industry, and so their parents earn an average household income under $20,000 a year. And many families migrate to follow the crop cycle, and so often the youth have to drop out of school to be with their families. The Tequio Scholarship Program hopes to inspire and encourage academic success. Tequio scholars have been accepted to UCSB, Cal State Fresno, Sacramento State, Cal State Channel Islands, Cal State Northridge, and UC Berkeley, among other schools. Thank you for giving generously, as you always do.
How sweet it is to be loved by you. I needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were. I needed someone to understand my ups and downs, and there you were. With sweet love and devotion, deeply touching my emotion. I wanna stop, and thank you, baby. I just wanna stop. How sweet it is to be loved by you. How sweet it is to be loved by you.
Sweet indeed. And sweet too is the generosity of this congregation, which helps us weave a tapestry of love we call community. Thank you.
Each week, we lift up the joys and sorrows that have been shared with our community. There are two ways to submit a joy or sorrow: from a link on the website, uuventura.org, or a link in our Thursday email bulletin, UUCV This Week. When we are together in our physical sanctuary, we drop stones in water for each joy or sorrow. The ripples that go out remind us that we are all connected. Here in our online sanctuary we make together today, we see the image of ripples to help us keep that connection. I invite you now to speak aloud or in your heart the names of those you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those who may need the loving embrace of this community. By invoking their names, even when we may not hear them, you bring them into this circle of caring that we call community. We hold these names, spoken and unspoken, in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
Please join me in singing Sleep, My Child.
Okay.
Sleep, my child, and peace attend you all through the night. I will love you, shall be near you all through the night. Soft the drowsy oars are creeping, hill and vale in slumber sleeping. I, my loving vigil keeping all through the night, while the moon her watch is keeping all through the night, while one half the world is sleeping all through the night. Even while the sun comes stealing, visions of the day revealing, breathe a pure and holy feeling all through the night.
We offer a reading in two voices this morning. Beatitudes for Parent, Father, Mother, and More by Janet Bowering. Blessed is the person who feeds and warms, washes and comforts a child and soothes them in illness.
For they shall be called caregiver. Blessed is the person who gives shelter and food, clothing, toys, books, and tools.
For they shall be called provider. Blessed is the person who opens doors in the child's experience, who explains the puzzling and wonders at the mysterious.
For they shall be called teacher. Blessed is the person who shields a child from that which will wither or warp, who protects a child from abuse and exploitation, who guards against bullying and scorn.
For they shall be called defender. Blessed is the person who takes the time to listen, who is there for a child in the darkness, who is aware of the fears, who speaks the words of encouragement in moments of despair.
For they shall be called sustainer. Blessed is the person who guides a child in search for beauty, who encourages them at what is daunting, who steadies them as they explore new experiences, who fires their aspirations and their dreams.
for they shall be called Inspirer. Blessed are all these persons who help bring an infant along the many paths to maturity.
For in them is the future well-being of humanity. I invite you now into a time of stillness. Breathe. Breathe again. Think back to a time when you felt nurtured and loved. How does it feel? Whose love embraced you? Now, hold also the image of someone you love tenderly, particularly a child you have cared for. Take some time and bask in all this sweet love you are capable of giving and receiving. A silent meditation.
Two, three, four. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, won't you stand by me? Just as long as you stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, and the mountains should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry. No, I won't shed a tear. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. you stand by me. Oh, darling, just as long as you stand by me.
Isn't evolution amazing? It brought us John Lennon and music and all sorts of ways that life has come forth on the planet. It's all interconnected, interwoven, interdependent everywhere we look. And today, I am thinking specifically about how we humans and all mammals, and maybe other animals too, all of us come to fall in love with our babies. Mammal babies in particular are born remarkably helpless and vulnerable compared to, say, reptiles or insect babies. And humans are perhaps the most helpless of all. Mammal babies need parents, both to care for them and to teach them how to stay safe and find food. So they need their parents to stick around for a while that lasts from weeks to years. Mammals literally evolved to fall in love with their babies, so they would be more likely to stick around for a while. This is also why humans love just about all babies of any species, genus, family, order, or class. Their big eyes, round miniature bodies, and soft skin or fur are just so dang cute. Their helplessness makes us want to hold and cuddle and coo. Don't you just want to cuddle those pups? Now, here I am summarizing some science that is not entirely settled. Yet there is a theory called the baby schema effect, which posits that when we see a baby, we get a hit of oxytocin, the love hormone, and a little dopamine, the pleasure hormone. Both chemicals are released at the sight of a baby, and even more so when we hold them, especially skin to skin. Nursing mothers get a rush of oxytocin, which is part of why it is particularly associated with mother love. Yet we all get it. Fathers, mothers, grandparents, adoptive parents, step-parents, foster parents, aunts, uncles, siblings, humans of all configurations. We get our own rush of oxytocin. We well up with love when we see babies. It's kind of like all the animals in the story Fidelity told earlier who helped the sweet, vulnerable pup, and pup who in turn passed that love on to a lost cub. And I can't help but smile back at this incredibly cute baby lizard. So on this second Sunday in May, I invite you all to celebrate nurturing love, however it is part of your life. I invite you to consider all those figures in your life who nurtured you. Your mother or mothers, your father or fathers, and all the people who cared for you and helped keep you safe, taught you and helped nurture all that you most love in yourself. In experiencing this nurturing embrace, wide and nurturing embrace, I mean no disrespect to mothers or to Mother's Day. Yet there are so many potential pitfalls and complications around Mother's Day that I would, if I could, replace it with something much more expansive. And so on this day, I propose us doing that. For Mother's Day itself has a long history, including some Unitarian connections. The first Mother's Day was actually declared in 1870 by Julia Ward Howe, peace activist, suffragist, Unitarian, and author of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. She wrote a Mother's Day proclamation saying powerfully, "We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs." For 40 years, Ward and fellow activist Ann Jarvis called for creating a Mother's Day for peace. This call was then taken up by Jarvis's daughter, Anna, in the early years of the 20th century. And finally, she and others convinced President Woodrow Wilson in 1914 to establish our own current Mother's Day on the second Sunday of May. And yet, within a decade, Anna Jarvis was already growing annoyed at the commercialization of this day. Per Wikipedia, by the 1920s, Hallmark and other companies started selling Mother's Day cards. Jarvis believed that the companies were exploiting Mother's Day for profit. Well, of course they were. Just another of the complications of this day. And as our understanding of sexual identity and gender and parenthood is growing both in breadth and depth, we are becoming more aware of who is being excluded. For there are so many kinds of families and parents, so many different people who are caregivers, providers, teachers, defenders, and inspirers. The title of this service comes from a search for non-gendered words for parents. Moppa and Dama are mashups of mama and papa and dada and mama and all those different words. Yet my favorite that I found is Obi, which simply means parent in the Yoruba language from Africa. And it also translates as heart. I am your Obi, your heart. You are my Obi, my heart. A single word expressing all the swirls of love between parent and child. So let us celebrate nurturing love this morning with gratitude. Indeed, think back to the times you have felt the wonderfully soft blanket of love wrapped around you when you knew nothing could harm you. Think of the times your own love has flowed forth from you, surrounding and protecting a child. This is not simply the purview of adults and parents alone. It can be from older sibling to younger sibling. For me, I was the baby of the family until my little sister came along 6 years after me, which did complicate our relationship over the years. Growing up, we weren't always close, yet we both started attending UC Berkeley in the same year. Pamela, my little sister, was a freshman, and I was in journalism school. As the big sister, I thought it would be good for us to take a women's self-defense class together. The teacher of the class explained to us all that women can have trouble defending ourselves, so she invited us to think of how we would react if someone we loved was being attacked. And there I was, looking over at my little sister, who by now was taller and yes, probably stronger than me, but I looked over at her and I felt such a rush of fierce and protective love, and I knew I would do whatever I could to defend her. Nurturing love is the legacy that we hand down through generations. It is what makes our species survive and thrive. Our love for children is perhaps the highest and purest love we are capable of. It is a pure and holy feeling. This works for us for so many reasons. For our species takes care of our children for the longest time in all of the animal kingdom. Elephants take the prize for the longest gestation time at 22 months. And their children stick around for something around 16 years. Orangutans care for their children for about 5 to 6 years, and yet their children still come back to visit mom till they are about 15. The age at which our children launch changes in different cultures and across history, though it is usually well into the teens and 20s. Our nurturing love for one another helps this happen, for we cannot fully find ourselves without love. And today in COVID times, we have so many more opportunities to share our nurturing love. I think not just of those with whom we are related by family, by blood, and by love, but I think too of frontline workers who put themselves at risk to save us, to serve us. Think of the masks that we wear to protect others more than they protect us. Examples, and yes, alas, counterexamples abound, but these examples of our nurturing love for one another have abounded in this time, and let us remember them well. And let today be a day when we celebrate our love for children, which is perhaps evolutionarily, psychologically, and spiritually the most abundant, fierce, lasting, and self-sacrificing love we are capable of. Yet it is this capacity to love so deeply which can save us as a species. Heck, it might even save the world. Let this day be the day we celebrate our capacity for nurturing love, a capacity to love that is in us all, and take that tiny rush of love you can get even at the sight of an adorable baby lizard. Take it in, remember it, share it, learn from it well, pass it on. Let this love be your heart. Your love for a child, your love for those dear to you, your love for the world. Let it be your heart. Amen. And may it be so. I invite you now into a time of prayer. Holy beingness of many names, including simply love, love which brings us into being, love which dwells within and among and beyond us this day and always. May we open our hearts to all your forms, all the ways we can express this pure and holy feeling. The love that is generative and creative, a love that is holy, a love that is tender, a love that embraces the vulnerable among us, a love that holds us when we are vulnerable, a love that protects, a love that sustains, a love that inspires, a love that can be the sweetest thing we know. May we ever and always take this love into our hearts, learn from it, grow from it, share it, pass it on, and in so doing, may we care for one another, raising our children up into parents who raise children, and on as we save ourselves. And may all those who are ill find healing. May those who are in despair find hope. May all those who are without shelter find home. And may those who are suffering conflict and war throughout the world, may we all know peace. Amen. And blessed be.
Please join me in our closing hymn. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard
Please join Reverend Dana in extinguishing your chalice at home. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. Those we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
After a brief postlude, everyone will be placed into breakout rooms for a virtual coffee hour, and I invite everyone to join in and share that moment of love, that a time they felt you felt nurtured, or you nurtured someone. Let's take some of that love with us into the breakout rooms. And if you wish to opt out at that point, that's a good time to do it. So now I leave you with these words adapted from the Reverend Richard Gilbert. We are, therefore we love. We love, therefore we are. May we be humble before the wonder of love, of what we dare to create with our love. Go forth in peace. Go forth in good health. Go forth in love. May it be so.